The breaking contract rate rumor. What's really behind the 5 o'clock update? At exactly 5 o'clock today, a new wave of speculation has rippled across the online Iraqi dinar community. The claim making the rounds sounds dramatic, that a special contract rate is about to be offered for holders of the Iraqi dinar, and that certain groups or exchange centers will soon be processing exchanges at a value far above the standard public rate. To many who have been holding onto dinar for years, or even decades, this sounds like the long-awaited moment finally arriving. But what does this rumor actually mean? Is there genuine evidence to support it, or is this just another cycle of hype designed to reignite hope? In this first section, we'll carefully examine the story surrounding the so-called contract rate. We'll look at how such claims arise, why they often resurface with new dates and deadlines, and how real financial systems actually operate when currencies adjust their value. We'll also consider the economic realities of Iraq, the history of the dinar revaluation idea, and the psychological pull that keeps many investors glued to these rumors. By the end, you'll have a much clearer view of whether the 5 o'clock contract rate story has any real weight, or whether it's simply another chapter in a very long narrative. What exactly is a contract rate? The term contract rate is not something you will hear in mainstream finance, banking regulations, or central bank announcements. Instead, it's a concept that has circulated for years within dinar investor circles. The idea behind it is relatively simple but extremely powerful. Supposedly, certain investors, groups, or special exchange centers have negotiated agreements with governments or financial institutions that allow them to exchange their dinar at a much higher value than the public will see. According to Rumour, this private rate could be close to 1 Iraqi dinar equaling $1, a level that would transform even modest holdings into life-changing wealth. On the surface, it sounds plausible. After all, governments and corporations sometimes strike contracts behind closed doors, right? But when it comes to currency valuation, the story doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Currencies are not privately revalued for select groups. Exchange rates are set by central banks and financial markets, then applied universally. A government or central bank cannot quietly decide to give one community of investors a hidden advantage without creating chaos in global trade and banking. Imagine if a business in Baghdad could sell oil using a completely different exchange rate than the official one published on financial markets. That would shatter trust in Iraq's financial system overnight. That is why, whenever the phrase contract rate comes up, it should be approached with great caution. It's a term that exists in speculative circles, not in the official language of central banking or international finance. The 5 o'clock launch rumor today's excitement revolves around the claim that at precisely 5 o'clock p.m., a contract rate rollout would begin. According to the chatter, exchange centers and certain banks are prepared to process dinar holders at these extraordinary values. In some versions of the story, as many as 160 exchange centers are allegedly lined up to participate in this event. That kind of detail makes the story sound concrete, specific time, specific number of centers. But details alone don't make it real. Here's the key problem. Currency adjustments don't unfold in the secretive, clock-striking fashion. Yes, central banks sometimes release updated exchange rates at fixed times of day, but those changes are instantly visible worldwide through Bloomberg terminals, Reuters feeds, trading screens, and official government announcements. If the Iraqi dinar were suddenly revalued to near parity with the dollar, it would be one of the most significant financial events of the 21st century. You wouldn't first hear about it in rumor forums or social media groups. It would dominate headlines on CNBC, BBC, Bloomberg, and every major financial outlet within minutes. The fact that no such confirmation is present today is the first and clearest signal that this 5 o'clock rumor should be treated with deep skepticism. The economics of the Iraqi dinar to understand why a sudden leap to a $1 or higher value per dinar is so unlikely. It's important to step back and look at Iraq's economic foundation. Iraq's current exchange rate for many years. The Central Bank of Iraq has maintained the official exchange rate in the range of about 1,300–1,500 dinar per US dollar. This stability has been achieved through deliberate monetary policy, careful management of foreign reserves, and reliance on Iraq's most important economic engine, oil. Iraq's vast oil resources bring in critical revenue, and that income allows the government to support its exchange rate and manage inflation. Why not revalue overnight? A sudden revaluation to $1 equaling $1 would represent a more than 1,000% overnight increase. For perspective, think about what that would mean. Every Iraqi citizen holding local currency would see their purchasing power multiplied dramatically in a single day. Prices of imports would collapse, the government's debt calculations would change instantly, and the cost of Iraq's exports, like oil, would skyrocket, making them less competitive on global markets. Such a move would not only destabilize Iraq's own economy, but could send shockwaves through international markets as well. Central banks simply don't operate that way. Gradual strengthening Vs. Sudden revaluation that doesn't mean the dinar can never rise in value. With political stability, economic growth, diversification beyond oil, and ongoing financial reforms, Iraq could gradually see a stronger currency over time. But history shows us that these processes unfold slowly, over years, with official announcements and global coordination. They do not appear suddenly through whispers about a secret 5 o'clock rollout. Why the Vietnamese dong is included in the story. Another interesting twist in today's Rumour is the inclusion of the Vietnamese dong. Some versions of the contract rate story suggest that both the dinar and the dong will be revalued together, with exchange centers offering special rates for both currencies. On the surface, this makes the story sound bigger and more credible. Two currencies, two nations, one grand financial event. But let's examine the economic reality. Vietnam has, in fact, experienced strong economic growth over the past few decades. It has become a manufacturing powerhouse and a key player in global trade. However, the Vietnamese government has deliberately maintained a weaker currency as part of its strategy to stay competitive in exports. A sudden, massive revaluation of the dong would harm Vietnam's ability to sell goods abroad, which is the backbone of its economy. So while Vietnam's growth story is real, the incentive for a sudden dramatic currency revaluation simply isn't there. No official announcements from Vietnam support today's Rumour, and the same red flags apply as with the dinar. The role of emotion in dinar investing. For many investors, this is not just about economics. It's about hope, patience, and emotional investment. Some people have been holding onto dinar or dong for over a decade, waiting for the day when their belief in a revaluation would be rewarded. Each new Rumour feels like it might finally be the one. That emotional connection makes the 5 o'clock story feel powerful, even when the facts don't line up. It's important to recognize how strong this psychological pull can be. The fear of missing out, the thought that maybe this is the moment I've been waiting for, can cause otherwise rational people to act quickly on unverified information. Unfortunately, this is the very dynamic that scammers and opportunists exploit. By attaching a sense of urgency to the Rumour, a specific time, a limited window, a special contract rate, they create pressure that can lead people to make poor financial decisions. How real exchange centers operate. To separate Rumour from reality, it helps to understand how actual licensed exchange centers function. Currency exchange is a heavily regulated industry. Every legitimate exchange provider must comply with banking laws, anti-money laundering regulations, and government oversight. They cannot simply decide to offer secret rates without approvals and a regulatory framework. If 160 exchange centers were genuinely preparing to offer contract rates today, there would be extensive documentation, regulatory filings, and coordination with the central bank. There would be clear announcements, both domestically and internationally. None of that exists. Instead, the story is supported only by screenshots, anonymous sources, and recycled talking points from past Rumour cycles. That's a clear sign the claim is not grounded in reality. Why deadlines keep changing. One of the consistent patterns in dinar speculation is the cycle of deadlines. Every few months, or sometimes every few weeks, a new date or time is promoted as the moment when everything will finally happen. As those deadlines pass without event, new ones quickly appear, often with slightly altered details. The 5 o'clock launch Rumour fits this exact pattern. It creates urgency, captures attention, and when it fails to materialize, it can easily be replaced with a new date in the near future. This cycle has been repeating for over a decade, and it remains one of the hallmarks of dinar speculation stories. The real process of a currency revaluation. If Iraq were to genuinely revalue its currency, the process would look nothing like today's Rumour. Here's what would actually happen. 1. Coordination by the Central Bank of Iraq. The CBI would work closely with the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and other international institutions to plan the adjustment. 2. Public announcements. Official statements would be released to the public, both in Iraq and globally, outlining the change and the reasons behind it. 3. Financial market integration. Major trading platforms, banks, and currency exchanges would update their systems immediately. Rates would appear on Bloomberg terminals, Forex platforms, and global currency converters. 4. Media coverage. Financial outlets worldwide would report the event within minutes, with economists analyzing the implications for Iraq, oil markets, and global trade. 5. Tax and legal guidance. In countries like the US, the IRS and financial advisors would provide clear guidance on how currency exchange gains should be treated. 6. Gradual adjustment measures. To prevent shocks, additional policies might be introduced to stabilize prices and protect local businesses. The silence on all these fronts today is the strongest evidence that the 5 o'clock Rumour has no connection to reality. Why large institutions aren't buying in. Another telling sign is the absence of movement from large banks, hedge funds, and institutional investors. These organizations employ entire teams of currency analysts who monitor global markets 24/7. If there were even a hint of an upcoming revaluation of the dinar or dong, these players would know long before small investors did. You would see trading volumes spike, speculative positions build up, and headlines appear about hedge funds moving billions into Iraqi assets. Instead, none of that is happening. The silence from the institutions that dominate currency markets stands in stark contrast to the noise in dinar forums, and that silence speaks volumes. Key red flags in contract rate stories. Whenever you hear about contract rate opportunities, there are several red flags to watch for. Guaranteed returns. No legitimate financial institution promises fixed windfalls on speculative assets. Urgency and pressure. Claims that you must act immediately before a window closes are common scam tactics. Upfront fees. Anyone asking for payment to unlock an exchange opportunity is highly suspicious. Conflict of interest. If someone is both selling you currency and predicting its future value, that's a major warning sign. Each of these elements appears in variations of the contract rate Rumour, which is why skepticism is the safest approach. The bottom line as of today, there is no verified evidence that a contract rate rollout is happening at 5 o'clock or at any other specific time. No central bank has confirmed it. No government has endorsed it. No financial institution has announced it. The story about 160 exchange centers preparing to launch is unverified and inconsistent with how the financial world actually operates. That doesn't mean Iraq's economic future is hopeless. Far from it. Iraq continues to rebuild, invest in its oil sector, and pursue reforms that could gradually strengthen the dinar over time. But dramatic overnight changes, especially secret revaluations accessible only to a select few, remain extremely unlikely. For investors, the best strategy is to remain cautious, rely on verified information, and focus on long-term realities rather than quick-fix rumors. True financial opportunities are never hidden in secrecy. Transparency is the foundation of legitimate finance, and if something can't be verified through official channels, it's almost certainly not real. Separating fact from fiction, long-term realities versus short-term hype. In the first section, we explored the origins of the so-called contract rate Rumour. The claim that at 5 o'clock today secret exchange centers would begin processing Iraqi dinar at massively elevated values. We broke down the flaws in that narrative by looking at how real currency systems operate, the economic realities of Iraq, and the absence of institutional or governmental confirmation. But the discussion doesn't end there. To fully understand why these stories resurface again and again, we need to look at several deeper layers. Taxation, the mechanics of international finance, Iraq's political and economic trajectory, the psychology of speculative investing, and the lessons investors can use to protect themselves going forward. This section will dive into those topics in detail. So by the time you finish reading, you'll have a full 360-degree view of why contract rate chatter at fixed hours is misleading, what real signs of progress in Iraq would look like, and how to approach speculative currency holdings without falling prey to recycled hype. The missing tax conversation. If a contract rate exchange were truly happening today, one of the first institutions you would hear from wouldn't be a bank or a currency dealer. It would be the tax authorities. In the United States, the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, treats currency gains as taxable events, often under capital gains rules. Short-term versus long-term gains. If you've held currency for less than a year, profits are typically taxed at ordinary income rates. If held for longer, you may qualify for lower long-term capital gains rates. Reporting obligations. Banks and licensed dealers are required to report large currency exchanges. If thousands of people suddenly cashed in dinar at dramatic new values, reporting systems would light up instantly. Professional response. Accountants, financial advisors, and tax attorneys would immediately start publishing guidance, explaining how to document transactions, what forms to file, and how to prepare for potential audits. And yet, in the case of today's contract rate rumor, none of this is happening. No official IRS bulletins, no widespread discussion among accountants, no special alerts from banks about large-scale foreign currency redemptions. The absence of a tax narrative is a glaring omission that reveals the unreality of the rumor. Global ripple effects that cannot be hidden. Currencies are not isolated numbers on a page. They are the foundation of trade, banking, and international contracts. If Iraq's dinar suddenly jumped from roughly 1,300 per US dollar to parity, the effects would be immediate and global. 1. Oil pricing disruptions. Iraq is one of the largest oil exporters in the world. A sudden surge in dinar value would drastically alter oil revenues, potentially making Iraqi oil much more expensive for international buyers. This would ripple into energy markets worldwide. 2. Regional trade shocks. Neighboring economies that trade heavily with Iraq, Turkey, Jordan, Kuwait, Iran, would be forced to adjust their pricing, contracts, and supply chains overnight. 3. Banking system recalibration. Every international bank connected to Iraq would have to instantly update its systems, collateral requirements, and risk calculations. That's not something that happens quietly in back rooms, it's highly visible. 4. Investor behavior. Hedge funds and sovereign wealth funds would immediately pounce on the opportunity. You would see trading spikes, capital flows, and media coverage of major financial players moving into Iraq. None of this is happening around today's 5 o'clock rumor. That silence across global markets is the clearest evidence that no secret revaluation is unfolding. Iraq's economic reality. To understand why dramatic rumors clash with reality, it's important to grasp Iraq's current position. Oil dependency. Iraq's economy remains overwhelmingly dependent on oil exports, which account for roughly 90% of government revenue. This heavy reliance means that fluctuations in global oil prices directly impact Iraq's budget and currency stability. Political instability. Iraq's political system is marked by factional divisions, competing interests, and frequent government reshuffles. While progress has been made, instability undermines investor confidence. A strong, stable political foundation is essential for currency strength. Infrastructure and diversification. Needs. Years of conflict have damaged infrastructure, and rebuilding remains slow. Diversifying the economy beyond oil into areas like agriculture, technology, and services is critical for long-term sustainability. Until that diversification accelerates, the case for a rapid currency revaluation remains weak. Central bank strategy. The Central Bank of Iraq has consistently chosen a path of gradual stabilization rather than sudden shocks. Adjustments in the dinar's value have historically been modest, carefully planned, and accompanied by official announcements. This pattern stands in sharp contrast to rumors of secret, overnight contract rates. The long game. What a real path to a stronger dinar looks like. Instead of waiting for a magical 5 o'clock switch to be flipped, it's worth considering what a realistic path to a stronger dinar would involve. 1. Economic diversification, reducing dependency on oil and building other industries. 2. Political stability, creating consistent governance and reducing corruption. 3. Banking modernization, expanding digital payments, tightening anti-money laundering controls, and connecting more fully to international systems. 4. Foreign investment, attracting sustainable investment into infrastructure, technology, and education. 5. Gradual policy shifts, allowing the dinar to strengthen incrementally as confidence in the economy grows. These are not dramatic, overnight steps, they are multi-year reforms. But they represent the real foundation of currency strength, not the illusion of hidden contract rates. The psychology of rumors. One reason contract rate stories persist is that they speak directly to human psychology. Hope and belief. Investors who have waited for years want to believe their patience will be rewarded. Fear of missing out. FOMO. Rumors create urgency. If you don't act now, you'll miss the window. Authority bias. When rumors are presented with details like 160 centers or 5 o'clock p.m., they feel official, even if unsupported. Community reinforcement. Online forums and groups create echo chambers where repeated claims start to feel like facts. Understanding these psychological drivers helps explain why the same story, with new dates and details, continues to capture attention even after being debunked many times. How scammers exploit the narrative. Unfortunately, the contract rate rumor doesn't just survive on its own, it's actively exploited. Common tactics include 1. Upfront fees, demanding payment to register for access to special exchange opportunities. 2. Exclusive groups, selling memberships to private circles that supposedly have insider information. 3. Currency sales, promoting additional dinar or dong purchases alongside bold predictions about imminent revaluation. 4. Time pressure, using deadlines like 5 o'clock today to create urgency and reduce critical thinking. These tactics are classic hallmarks of financial scams. Recognizing them is the first step toward avoiding costly mistakes. What would legitimate confirmation look like? If a real revaluation were underway, here are the unmistakable signs you would see. Official press releases from the Central Bank of Iraq. Coverage by major outlets such as Bloomberg, Reuters, CNBC, and the Financial Times. Real-time updates on currency trading platforms worldwide. Statements from international institutions like the IMF and World Bank. Visible system updates across banks and exchange houses. Tax guidance from the IRS and similar agencies abroad. None of these signs are present with the 5 o'clock rumor. That's why the story should be viewed not as hidden truth, but as recycled fiction. Investor guidelines. Protecting yourself from rumors. For anyone holding dinar or dong, the key is not panic or despair. It's adopting disciplined, fact-based approaches. 1. Verify with banks. Ask your bank directly if they deal in exotic currencies and what their policies are. 2. Check regulators. Look for announcements from central banks and government institutions, not rumor sites. 3. Avoid pressure decisions. Never act out of fear that you'll miss out on a secret window. 4. Be wary of sellers. If someone is both promoting rumors and selling you currency, treat it as a red flag. 5. Think long-term. If you've chosen to hold currency, do so with patience and realism, not expectation of overnight riches. Why patience matters more than urgency. The hardest part of speculative investing is waiting without chasing every new rumor. The dinar and dong stories thrive on urgency. Act before the window closes. But history shows us that deadlines come and go with no revaluation. Acting on hype can lead to unnecessary losses, stress, and disappointment. By contrast, patience allows investors to step back, evaluate the broader economic picture, and make decisions rooted in facts rather than emotions. If Iraq's reforms eventually strengthen the dinar, those changes will unfold in visible, official ways. There will be time to respond. No opportunity of global significance will ever be restricted to secret 5 o'clock contracts whispered in rumor channels. The true bottom line at the end of the day, the 5 o'clock contract rate rumor is just the latest entry in a long pattern of recycled stories. The reality is straightforward. No government has confirmed it. No central bank has announced it. No financial institution has prepared for it. No tax authority has issued guidance on it. No global markets have reacted to it. That silence, across every level of the real financial system, is all the proof needed that today's rumor does not hold water. What is real is Iraq's gradual effort to reform its economy, strengthen its institutions, and stabilize its currency. That progress is slow, imperfect, and ongoing, but it represents the genuine path to change. For investors, the wisest move is not to chase rumors, but to ground decisions in verified information official announcements, and long-term realities. Transparency, not secrecy, is the hallmark of real financial change. Final word speculative assets like the dinar or dong can stir powerful emotions. Hope, patience, and frustration often run side by side. But when faced with stories like today's 5 o'clock contract rate rumor, the most important step is to pause, think critically, and ask, if this were true, where is the proof in official systems? Until the day comes when headlines, banks, and governments all align with clear confirmation, these contract rate stories should be recognized for what they are. Compelling, but ultimately unfounded tales that recycle again and again. The future of Iraq's currency will be written not in rumor forums, but in the halls of its central bank, the strategies of its policymakers, and the slow but steady rebuilding of its economy. And that future, while uncertain, will always be visible in the open, not hidden in secret 5 o'clock exchanges. Disclaimer: all content provided by IQD Global Intel is for educational and informational purposes only. We are not financial advisors and do not provide investment, trading, or banking advice. Viewers should always conduct their own research and consult with a licensed financial advisor before making any financial decisions.